Good evening, good morning, everyone. I'm switching to English now, so we can start our presentation. I was just welcoming all attendees with us today, and I will not take from your time more than that. I will leave the floor to you, Peter, so you can manage the webinar, please.
Okay, thanks, Yasmin. And good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Kilduff, and welcome to this, which is our third webinar on the GTEx Menatex project on behalf of the International Trade Center. Today's topic is marketing strategy, building your company brand, and also the importance of sustainability for the US market. And so we're going to explain these in the presentation we have. So first of all, let me introduce you to the panel we have today. So there are 5 of us, all based in the United States, but we're actually an international team drawn from Asia, Europe, and North America. All of us are going to be talking to you during the course of this presentation. So starting here from left to right, Frances Harder. Frances is a designer and a marketing specialist. She's run her own fashion brands and business development companies, and she's been an international consultant for I was going to say many years, but I won't say that many years, Frances. And secondly, Jill Mazur. Jill is a specialist in information technology systems for the fashion industry. She's worked with a lot of leading brand names and consulting businesses on introducing business process technologies for fashion companies. Thirdly, Anne Kristen Erdmann-Burt. Anne is a specialist in branding and marketing, and Anne hails originally from Germany. Again, she's worked with a lot of leading companies inside and outside of the fashion business. Fourthly, Meditha Senanayake. Meditha is my colleague at, in fact, Anne is too, my colleague at Cal Poly Pomona University. He's a specialist in apparel production and operations management, particularly quality and also supply chain management. And lastly, myself, I am a specialist in business strategy and dynamics of competition in the apparel and textile sectors. So we have a quite diverse and intersecting set of skills between us. And sorry, I have a Bluetooth mouse, so it has a mind of its own. It likes to go in either direction. So that might happen sometimes during this presentation. So here's our agenda. First of all, we're going to talk about building your brand. And then secondly, we're going to talk about marketing strategy, the 4 Ps of marketing in the modern fashion arena. And then finally, we're going to look at sustainability for the US market. So let's get started. US buyers have very high expectations. As we've said in our previous presentations, they are extremely exacting, and they're looking for partners with similar values and professional communication methods. As we've said before, they have high expectations. They expect, they're very exacting. So a key for succeeding in a very competitive market is to build your company brand. That is, build your company as a brand. The company is the brand, and make sure that buyers can connect with you on various levels. Companies expect to be able to access you easily, and they expect you to be responsive and dependable. So be prepared to invest in your brand and be able to connect and be proactive to find buyers. Thinking and communicating as a brand will add equity to your business and put your company on a path to long-term partnerships with US buyers. So we're next going to look at the road from CMT to becoming a brand. So it's easy to say, a little bit more difficult to do. So here is the trajectory of business development, moving from being a CMT, a cut, make, and trim manufacturer, to being, on the left-hand side here, to being a marketing your own branded merchandise on the right-hand side. So if you do cut, make, and trim, oh, there's my mouse again having its own mind. So if you do cut, make, and trim, then basically you're getting all the information you need. All you need to do from the buyer, all you need to do is to cut, make, and trim, and possibly your buyer is picking up the merchandise from your factory. You don't even have to ship it. And the primary focus of your business is production management and quality control. But as we move towards being more engaging with customers, being more involved in the business process, the next typical step is what is called half package, or in some cases they just call it package. But being a half package supplier actually, again, breaks down into two components. In one, you add sourcing of fabric, thread, and trims to your business operations. So the buyer is still giving you all the design and specs and so on of exactly what they want, but you have to source the fabric, thread, and trims for their designs. So sourcing is added to your business functions. And then another dimension of half package is where actually the buyer is seeking for you to provide technical design services to support the business. So in these instances, they are doing the creative design. They know what they want to sell in the market, and they're sharing with you the creative designs, but you have to help with the technical design of the product and the grading and so on. So that's half package with design input. And as you get more involved, as you're providing more services, so here I've suggested that the buyer is no longer collecting at your warehouse. You're probably shipping it to the local port as free on board. So you're shipping it until it is on board the vessel that will take it to the United States. So, and as far as functions goes, you're adding technical design to your business functions. Then as you become a full package manufacturer, then you're getting involved in many more business processes. And although we've kind of characterized this as 5 steps, of course, it's a generalization and there's a kind of a continuum from one to the other. So full package, you're getting involved in helping your buyers identify trends in the marketplace. So you're getting engaged in trend research. You're helping with creative design. So you're doing a collaboration with your buyers. You're doing the technical design. You're sourcing the fabric and trims. You're now possibly shipping to the buyer's port of entry, cost, insurance, and freight, CIF. Or possibly you're even shipping to their distribution center, delivered, duty paid. And also you might, in some full package arrangements, you can be doing vendor managed inventory, where possibly you're having your own distribution center in the United States, and you're managing the shipping of inventory to their local stores. So in terms of functions, you're adding creative design, supply chain management, finance, because now you're having to finance the whole operations process. You're doing the inventory management, you're dealing with all of the compliance issues and providing customer service, and you're integrating your business intimately with your buyers. So this is full package. And of course, the world famous full package supplier in our business historically has been Li & Fung. And then the final step of development is developing and marketing your own brands. So on top of full package activities, you're now engaged in actually conducting market research, you're identifying target markets to service, you're developing your own brand. So these are the things we're going to be talking about today. And then, of course, you're designing your own product line, you're testing it to make sure that it's a good design with consumer groups and buyer groups. You're establishing a web and social media presence to help market your brand. You're selecting which channels are going to service your target market. You're then selling to those channels, and of course, then making, shipping, and managing your own inventory through your own distribution. So you're adding functions like marketing analysis, brand positioning, creative and technical design, marketing and promotion, and selling to your business. And I embedded these in, I call this a trajectory of business development, because as you move to the right, as your business strategy moves to the right, you're finding growing complexity. The business requirements you're facing are growing complexity. And I think we will return to this concept in a later webinar as well, to pull out some of these things in a bit more detail. But these are the essential steps in moving from CMT through to developing your own brands. And of course, we know companies who supply international retailers and brands as either CMT or full package suppliers, but also market their own brands in the domestic market, because that's usually the proving ground for then becoming an international brand. So, how to build your brand, the foundations. I think Anne is going to take over from here.
Okay, I think the first slide, Francis, brand name. So we're now going to deep dive into how you build your brand foundations. And the first slide is the brand foundations.
So yes, thank you. Well, good morning, good evening, everybody. Yes, so the first thing you need to be thinking about if you are considering to build your own brand is, number one is what name you choose. And that you really have to think wisely about what kind of a name you are choosing, because it needs to be understood straight away, that you don't have to repeat it 5 times. You know, typical example, Lululemon, what does it mean? It means nothing, but you know, it sort of rolls off your tongue. Nike, we know, Guess, all these different names that you can remember as brands. You know, they're easier to say, they don't necessarily mean anything. So when you're coming up with a name for your brand, and we've already been talking to some of the companies about using maybe an adaptation of their own name, and shortening it and see whether or not it's available. Of course, if you do choose a name, check it out, make sure that there's no conflict of interest, because there could be a problem. You start using it and then someone's going to tell you to cease and desist. So think about doing your research before you actually make sure that you can use that name. Register the domain name. I mean, go to GoDaddy, you can buy it for very little. It's a good way of just establishing it and making sure there is no confusion in the marketplace. Don't let there be a confusion in the marketplace, because if there is anybody before you, you could have a problem. So understanding, making sure that it's understood globally, internationally. It's easy to understand, no negative associations. Sometimes things that you may think is okay could be perceived as being negative or rude here, or vice versa. So making sure that you have something that's sensitive to the international customer is important. Make sure the font is easy to read, and use consistently brand colors and design elements, so that you then get the beginning of a brand recognition. And I always say, like in a trend, you see first time you see a new trend and you go, what the hell is that? That is such a weird looking trend. So it's important that you, sorry about that, I thought my husband had it. So excuse me 1 second, to make sure that.
So actually, while Francis looks after her technology, I'd like to kind of reinforce a point she's making here. My wife's company, she works for a Hong Kong-based internet retailer that sells in Asia, Europe, and North America. And they never bothered to register their name in the United States. They've been here like 10 years and they never registered their name. And then earlier this year, somebody in New York registered the companies, applied to register their company name, which is their company brand in the United States. They're selling online. And so they had to fight it in the courts. And they finally won, but it cost them a lot of money. So it really is important to register your trademarks and company name in the United States.
Absolutely true. And it works the other way too, Peter, because I know there's been instances, as we've heard all this, where bigger brands recognized in America have suddenly found out that they've been registered in China, so they can't use their own branded name. I've just gone through actually registering my own copyright intellectual property in China. Not cheap. So make sure that you begin this process by doing a research. And like I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by my telephone. Sorry about that. Trends tend to be needed to be seen a few times before it really is accepted. So we always say with a trend, first time you see it, you see somebody and they go, wow, that looks weird. What are they wearing? And then the second time you see it, you say, that's the second person I've seen wearing that. And eventually, by the time you get to the sixth time you see it, you go, well, maybe I need to be buying that. So it's a matter of process and a consistency in what you're doing when you're telling a story about what you're doing, who your name is, and being consistent in everything you do. So your brand name can be letters, symbols, or a combination of both, which is good, like the Nike and the Lululemon. Make sure the trademark, the name, and the web domain is, if also necessary, is available to you. And also you can register it. I have got information on registering where you would go to register your trademark and copyright, any information here in America, and I can definitely, it will be sent to you. Okay, so that's a basics of understanding your brand name. That's your first step in establishing yourself as a brand, is thinking about what instance of your brand can you use and what will be accepted and what will eventually be catchy enough for people to recognize. So I think Anne's next, I think.
Yes. So after you have decided about your brand name, or most of you obviously have names for your companies, maybe you rethink the name, maybe you're going to adjust it for the global markets. The next step will be your USP, which is your unique selling proposition and your value proposition. What makes you unique and what makes you better than your competitors in the market? As you know, and we've mentioned, the market is very competitive. It is hard also to really be heard between, like, if you see also, especially now with the digital trade shows, with everything being online, it is extremely important to carve out your niche where you are the best and how you can communicate that you are the leading companies. A couple of examples for what can USPs be. You could be the manufacturer with the fastest turnaround times, maybe the highest high reliability in meeting your delivery dates, and your quality are your differentiators. Also, it could be that you focus on sustainable and ethical manufacturing. Maybe it's your technology leadership. So all of these are just some, like, very small examples of defining your differentiator in the market. And this is really essential that you by yourself go back and say, okay, what are we really good at and what is what we are best at, and how do we communicate that in the next step? And if we look at on the next slide, that means also with your USP, defining your target group. Who do you really want to talk to? Who are your customers you want to work with in the future? All of that is connected. Your USP and your value proposition, what you can deliver the best, will identify your target group. And your target group is basically, if you are a manufacturer, it is the buyer you are addressing. It's the buyer you want to come to your magic booth, you want to come to your digital magic presence or your website. And that means you need to know details about them. You need to know what's their age group, what's their demographics, their values and personalities. And defining all of that will help you in the next step to look at how do we need to communicate. We call it the tone of voice. How do we need to address the buyer? How does the design on your website look like? If you're talking to somebody maybe in the who's 25, they might appeal to something different than somebody who's 45 or 50 or 60. And also think of the overall design and merchandising of your lines. What is this buyer looking for? And especially knowing also your market research, your target market in terms of trend research. It also will indicate your photography style. Means what type of models do you use? What details do you show? And then, of course, your brand colors and fonts. Francis touched on that already in the brand name, but it means also your overall corporate identity on your website, on your marketing materials, on your catalogs. All of that will be affected by defining your target group. And we're going to look at their target group definitions and examples in the next slide a little bit more detailed.
Try again.
Oh, the mouse.
Yes.
Okay. What you see here in this pyramid is on the blue box would be your largest target segment. In this case, it's just a random example of being a sportswear manufacturer, large quantities. So your biggest segment would be buyers of large athletic sportswear and e-commerce retailers, like let's say New Balance in the US. Puma is Europe-based, but also has their US headquarter in Boston. So that would be your first segment. You probably all of you know who you want to talk the best, but it's also really good to visualize it. The second segment you see here is the gray one, which is small to medium-sized sportswear and athletic retailers, licensees, and e-commerce platforms. That would mean, like the blue one, I would say, is maybe comes easy to you to identify. It's like, oh, these are the companies you really know, you want to work with. But the gray one is also like a really big part of the segmentation and can bring you additional business. And maybe it needs some additional research to find out who are these people. Like it's maybe lesser known brands in your market. Or I have one example here, Fanatics is a big licensee. They do all the licensed sportswear for like Major League Soccer or the NBA, for all sports teams. And all of you know how big sports are in the US market. So that's maybe in your first start, you're thinking about the Nikes, the Pumas, the Adidas, but then who is behind that and who are the other companies behind large quantities? So that would be your gray segment here. I also, on the right side, you see another one, which is Athletic Propulsion Lab. It's a newer one. So there's always also new and upcoming brands, which need a little bit more research. And then the tip of the pyramid, the green one, you see Major League Soccer as an example, or Harvard University. If you look at private or public institutions and associations, the key message is here, when you overall define your target group segments, go from your, like, what is the biggest segment of your business, or you think it is, to also deep dive into researching what else companies are out there. Because as all of you know, it takes a lot of like contacting, reaching out, being proactive. So you need to have a really big target list and list of leads. And that's how you could structure it. In the next slide, we're gonna look briefly also on what the next step would be. You've seen the 3 segments, and in these 3 segments, you have different target personas. I touched on, you need to know your buyer. You need to know who this person is. So you need to know more about their characteristics. What are they looking for? And that means also knowing, is this buyer highly price sensitive? Of course, most of the buyers are, but there's a difference if you're buying for New Balance or Puma, or if you're buying maybe for an institution where you also don't need to sell to department stores. So your margin situation will look way different. Knowing all of that is extremely important for you to really deep dive in also, how does your offering look like? How does your communication look like? And knowing their objective. Some buyers might be defined through a really high customer service requirements, means they don't know maybe the apparel market as well as you. They do not know about duties. They don't know about supply chain. And you will need to educate them and take them basically on the hand and follow through with them. Means your communication is different than with a buyer who knows the business in and out and will just expect the lowest price from you. So defining really in detail the personas per target group segment is essential for building your marketing strategy. And then I'm going to hand over to Frances again.
Thank you. So yeah, positioning, once you've decided on where it is you feel that you fit in with your company and your brand, what are the brands you are competing with in the US and of course in your domestic Egyptian market, will be, I would say, your first task is to obviously identify, and you probably have already done this, identify who your competitors are within your Egyptian market. And maybe there are some of them that you could even do some private label manufacturing for, but also for the American market, again, doing your research, finding out their methods of business. You know, there are certain quirks for every company. So it's really important for you to do a little bit of investigation on companies that you feel that you could sell to. So we recommend listing about 5 to 10 brands with similar price segments and offerings. We did send, I think, Anne and I sent to you all a list of possible contacts here through LinkedIn for those who were showing at sourcing. And it's good to sort of work out a way of getting your marketing material together. The first thing to do once you have recognized your brands that you're competing with, of course, is making sure that your marketing material before you reach out is ready and looks impressive enough to make people want to read it. Research your competitors will help you a lot. So market research, being up to date with your consumers' trends, buying trends will help you work closer with your customers. Stay up to date on your sourcing and manufacturing trends, business and US specific news. And here they're on the sides. These are, I get these daily, and I'm sure most of our panel do also. And there's some interesting information in there that you can gain on what's happening in the market, who's doing what, who's selling what. So it's always good to keep an eye on what the trends are in the US and of course globally as well. So stay up to date on sourcing, manufacturing trends, business and US specific news. Sign up for the newsletters. Most of them are free. And trade shows in your field, most of them offer free webinars, which we're just coming off 3 months with sourcing. I think I've done 36 webinars. They're all free, and a lot of universities and colleges have been checking in as well. They're pre-recorded, so you can find them up on their website, and there are a huge list of different topics that you can gain insight for. So having a look what's available through free sessions through these different channels is also important. Examples of resources: Business of Fashion, WWD. These are sort of sourcing journal I get quite a lot of information on. So do check these out, and it will help you identifying trends. And of course, we realize, all of us, that this is all putting on a great deal of extra work when you're trying to run your own business. So, sometimes you can get some really good help maybe from some of the college interns to see if they can help you with some of the identification to help your company. So maybe that's something that the associations can help you with.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of information that you can get for free online. That's the beauty of the World Wide Web. And sorry, did I go forwards or backwards? That was my mouse again having its own mind. There we go.
So yeah, you're on to 14. Yes, and I think this is we go back to Anne now.
Okay, so to summarize what we've talked about in the last couple of slides, and before we move on, why is it so important to work on your brand foundations? It will help you to steer your future strategy and expansion plan, because it makes it clearer overall for you with the deep dive into research, into your target group. Where do you need to adjust? Where do you need to go? What do you still need to work on? And also looking at it, it specifically really helps for your midterm and long-term vision and expanding your business. So we're going to talk also in the next slides about the 4 Ps, which are your strategic principles, which will also help you deep dive really in each segment of your marketing strategy and company strategy. And you will see every time we are linking it back to communicating who you are as a company, and that really buyers can connect well with you, and buyers see your website, see your materials, and they are like, oh wow, I want to work with this company because I can totally see who they are, what they offer, and why they are better than anybody else in the market. Okay, and we're gonna, in the next slide.
Can I chime in for a second, Anne?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so you summarized very well. And one thing I want to highlight and emphasize is that it is very important to know the buyer, but it is also very, very important to know your consumer, because I think we touch base on that, but I just want to make sure I emphasize that. Your buyer is very important for you, but what you do to reach your buyer and steal the deal is also a function of how much you know about your consumer. When I was working in the United States, one of the things I told the merchandisers and buyers here is to go to the company, the factory in China, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and actually see what they do, how they do, who they are, and just try to get to know them. The same way, I think as manufacturers, you need to send your people to United States and actually meet with the consumers if possible, and understand what the consumer needs are. It is as important as you know the buyer. Just want to emphasize that.
I would also
I'm really glad
too,
you jumped in. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm jumping in as well. Sorry. Yeah, I think that understanding the US, it's not like just understanding the US. It's such a huge market. So I think if anybody can take the time to visit America, you'll find the demographics are really very strikingly different. So besides the weather, there are lifestyle differences that are really quite profound. So understanding the demographics of America is really also interesting to see where you should really focus on most, and also think about who, as Medusa was saying, about who would be your final buyer of your product. So that is important. I'm sorry, I just jumped in there with that.
No, it's great both of you jumped in. Totally important, the consumer side, never to forget, and really like knowing, of course, really well who you are addressing also behind the buyer, because that will definitely give you the indication. What we're gonna look at on the 4P slide, so on the previous slide.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So the next slides in this presentation, you will find it structured.
Can I just interrupt you for a second before we continue with the presentation, because we have a question in the Q&A box from Muhammad Abu Ayana. He's asking about giving practical examples, case studies, or how to. This is a question that we just received. So if you can answer to that before we move to the next section.
Yes. So for practical examples for the like the target group definition or the brand foundations, what it could be an example is really, and also if my group can jump in, one example could be really if you have defined your target group and you know exactly who your brand are. Let's say Lululemon. Let's take that example. Maybe that makes it easier to relate it to. If you look at the Lululemon website, and of course that's a brand and not a manufacturer, but you see that everything is about yoga and community. The communication will evolve around it. The photography will evolve around it. The mood of the images will evolve around it, because Lululemon knows exactly who their target group is. Of course, if we can provide, and we have provided also several examples of manufacturers who address a certain target segment, and that can be a manufacturer who is made specifically to sportswear, or somebody who is specifically on the more sustainable or ethical side. So those are case study examples. We definitely can also provide more in detail, but maybe my colleagues also would like to add anything to the question.
Sure. Frequent examples I come across are companies. We live next to the surf and what they call the surf and skate community in Southern California. They're big skateboarding, big surfing, and a lot of outdoor sports in Southern California. But companies, a number of these companies, when you read their histories, particularly Quicksilver is one. By people who were surfers, and that they determined that the board shorts that surfers wore just weren't really up to the job, and that they could design a better product. And the thing is, and so they did. They by knowing exactly what, because they lived in the surfing community, they were surfers. And then they also knew how to communicate to that community. They know where they went, they know what they did, they knew how to reach them. I think there's many examples of that you really have to be into that market. You really have to know it. And if you're already inside of that market, like Quicksilver, the Quicksilver founders were, then it's very beneficial. I hope that's a good example.
I'll jump in there, Peter, because I actually worked for Quicksilver for 3 years. And what I was going to say in terms of product with companies like that is, I think sometimes that becomes a cautionary tale for other manufacturers, other brands out there. And it's something that I was going to focus on the product slide as well. But when companies like a Quicksilver or other branded apparel companies start to branch out outside of what we would consider their core competency. So in this case with Quicksilver, where they do make board shorts, swimwear, active lifestyle t-shirts, things that you would wear to the beach, things that you would wear to go snowboarding. They call themselves board riders. So anything that uses a board, so a skateboard, a surfboard, a snowboard. When they started to branch out outside of the area of their core competency, they started having trouble, because while the brand name Quicksilver is very identifiable in the areas of board shorts, when they started reaching into product categories that weren't necessarily related to an active lifestyle, their consumers or customers didn't really relate to it. So they spent a lot of time and a lot of money developing some product lines that were outside of their normal area, making an assumption that their customers would automatically latch onto that. And it turns out that their customers came to them for exactly what they were looking for: board shorts, skateboard, surfboard, and snowboard products. And they weren't looking for men's nice dress shirts or women's dresses and things like that. So they spent a lot of money branching out, and then wound up having to rein it back into their competency. So it's just a cautionary tale there. back to Anne.
Okay, so just really briefly on the slide. So the structure of the following slides are the 4 Ps, which I believe is a very valuable model for your marketing strategy. It's a very old model, and sometimes it may be like you can see it in books, but it's really like an easy orientation for you to define the segments you need to define for your marketing strategy. The first one is the product, where Jill is gonna deep dive after the slide. Then the price, where we're gonna touch on the promotion, which is more the doing of your actual marketing. And then the place, your distribution strategy, your go-to market, which we briefly gonna talk about today. So we're gonna start with product, and Jill is gonna take it from here.
Thank you, Anne. I think we can go to the next slide, Peter. Peter, would it be easier if you want me to run the slides, or do you want to continue to run them?
I can hand over when you finish. I think Meditha is next, and I'll hand over when Meditha, because Meditha wants to control the screen, so I'm good.
Fair enough. I'm not a control freak. I don't mind. Okay, so in terms of product strategy, as Anne was saying, there are some very specific things to think about when we look at product. What type of product categories do you want to offer for your customers? So you hopefully already know your core competencies. If you are making sleepwear, if you are making activewear, if you are making men's suits, if you're making women's dresses, you already know that you have the competency in that area to work with those types of products. You know that you have the correct machines available for cutting, for sewing, for fusing, whatever it is that you need to. So that, generally speaking, should help drive where you want to go in the marketplace with what you would want to offer to your customers. Do you want to offer more than what you have today? Do you want to try and narrow it down on the things you know that you can make well, that you have great quality on, and potentially that you can produce maybe a little bit more quickly if one of your goals is to get products to market as fast as possible? When you're communicating with your buyers, with your customers, they need to know right away what it is that you have to offer. So I know that we've had webinars in the past. I know you've been working with Anne and Francis on what that website needs to look like, what the content needs to be in the website, knowing what, when I click on this site, that you have maybe 15 seconds to capture your customer's attention. So what is it that you're trying to sell to them? And in terms of merchandising, I have a couple of slides on that in a moment. So we'll talk a little bit about that more, but how do you merchandise your products so that your customers understand what it is that you are selling to them, what it is that you want to sell, I should say. In terms of integrating trends and innovations, as Francis was saying, there are a number of websites, there are a number of newsletters, there are a number of daily updates that you can get in your inbox in terms of what the trends are in the industry, what the product innovation is. We know that the industry is going more, or trying to move toward a more circular economy, where you start with a product and the product doesn't wind up back in the landfill once the consumer is finished with it, but that it can be reused, reduced, recycled, renewed in a way so that we are saving resources and making the world a more sustainable place. So I know we'll have some sustainability slides as well. And then in terms of what types of offering do you have that you can differentiate yourself again in the marketplace? Do you have capabilities that you can work with a specific type of fabrications? Can you get certifications for being environmentally conscious? You've reduced the amount of water you're using, let's say, you've reduced the amount of fabric that you wasted, so on and so forth. Having those types of certifications also helps differentiate you in terms of what you're offering. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So in terms of product strategies and consumer trends. So we're looking at things like work leisure. Now that many people are working from home, we might all be, I'm going to just use a very American phrase, we might be business up top and party down below. So I might be wearing my nice business top right now, but I could also be wearing my pajamas underneath. So we can have things like work leisure. We have things like athleisure, which I think is definitely where the industry is trending these days. Just a more comfortable way of moving about your day. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So from a technology standpoint, how are you able to showcase your products? So with digital merchandising, it's essentially the same as merchandising, but within a very digital way. So whereas you might be at a trade show in the past, you might have products on hangers, you might be displaying all the types of products that you're able to make. You may be lining them up in a way that makes sense color-wise or product-wise, tops and bottoms and so on. Now we have to look at how can we do that digitally? What types of tools do we have to use? And also, how do we take that information and help it make sense to your buyers, to your customers? So in the same way as you'd think about going into a retail store and when you go shopping, how does a store look when you walk in there? How is the merchandise laid out? What does the flow look like? We can do similar things, not the same, but similar things using digital tools that are available out there to strategically display your products and promote them to buyers. So digital merchandising is taking a cue. Oh, go ahead, go back one slide, Peter, if you don't mind. That's okay. I can speak faster if you'd like. Digital merchandising takes cues from traditional product marketing and merchandising, but we'll see in a moment what that translates to. And another thing about the digital merchandising, so typically that type of software can integrate with an e-commerce platform, meaning a platform where buyers and consumers can come in and purchase your products as well. It also, the digital merchandising will integrate with your web content for your web pages. It can integrate with inventory management. It can integrate with point of sale in a retail situation, and also with customer relationship management systems. So that's something that I'll be talking about in some of my future webinars as well. So let's go ahead to the next slide, Peter. So if you are already using digital tools to create product designs, and if many of you are doing that, then you are almost halfway there in terms of being able to do your digital merchandising. If you're still doing line drawing for design, or if that's where you want to be with your business, you will still need to take the line drawing and digitize it to create patterns and to create markers. So by taking your design tools and starting to use digital tools to create designs, you are advancing your process. You're making the digitization of patterns and markers easier, but you're also making your merchandising significantly easier by having these digital images. So there's a number of software programs out there today. You may already be using things like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW, Design Fashion Pro. There's 3D tools as well out there that can help you in terms of designing products. Go ahead and click on the next slide, Peter. Thank you. So once you have that basis of that initial design, you can start taking that and playing around with it. So I've got my initial sketch of that t-shirt that we just saw, and now I'm laying it out here on the screen with different colorways, with different possible options in terms of bottoms and tops. And this is giving me an idea of not only what do I want my products to look like, but how I could potentially lay them out for my customers as well.
Jill, may I jump in a bit?
Yes,
Jill,
please.
excuse me. Well, and this is an important tool because you can cut out a lot of sampling. It's a really good way of communicating with the buyers. what it is you're planning on doing, running it by the buyers and saying, how do you feel about this body? How do you feel about this colors? They may say, well, we would prefer it if it had maybe a stripe down the side of the jogging pants or the leisure pants, or they may want, we're looking at a lot, the big trend now is being asymmetric. So they may say we want a black sleeve in that jacket and a white sleeve. So this tool that Jill's talking about is really an important tool to really assist you to reach out to the buyers you've got those relationships with. And by the way, Madhutha was talking about making a relationship with the buyers. Business is built, as you all know, on relationships. So having that good contact with these people is really, really crucial. So what Jill's laying out here is not only for you, but it's also an important tool for you to work with the buyers. And a lot of the big companies do this all the time without even sewing one sample. They will show them the concept board and they go from there. So thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Frances. And then this is also, somebody had asked what strategies can you use for digital trade shows? So to Frances's point, by being able to use these digital tools, we'll go ahead and take a look at the next slide. And you see we've gone from the initial flat sketch in black and white to concept in terms of tops and bottoms and potential colorways, to a much more professional layout here, which would be consumer facing or that you could typically use for a digital trade show. Now, to Frances's point, and to Anne's point as well, that's where the researching comes in on your part. So you can't just come to market with a layout like this and expect your consumers and your customers to say, yeah, that looks great, sure, let's buy all these products. You do have to do some research. You do have to know who your buyers are. You do have to understand what your own core competencies are. So let's say you are a company that works mainly with knits, and all of a sudden you're introducing all of these woven products into your design line as well. Are you going to be capable of producing wovens the same way you are capable of producing your knit products? Can you produce caps like this as well? So you need to understand the types of products you're presenting. You need to feel confident in them, and you also need to feel like you are, that slide was perfectly fine too, Peter. You do need to feel confident in what it is that you are presenting at these trade shows, to know that these are products you can easily make, you're comfortable with them. If you have gone out and done sampling on them, so that when somebody sees this online and they ask you, can you send me a sample of that? And maybe that's not the right direction to go. And I'll take the feedback from my colleagues here to say, do you send out samples of your own products when you're designing them, or do you wait? I don't know.
Well, the first thing, to jump in again, is if you're showing these concepts at a trade show or you're showing them to a buyer, you must have worked out your price points, because they're immediately going to say, so how much will this cost, right? So you must have already done some calculations as to what the price will be for these particular garments. And in regards to, say, the shoes or the hats, you can always outsource that and they could put your label, your logo on it, or whatever it is that you need to do. But of course, price is important. So it's great to come up with great concepts, but it's not going to work if you suddenly find out that you're not making any money by producing it. And so, yeah, and to Jill's point, going from knits to woven, it's a big leap. So yeah, you may want to take that slowly.
So the last thing I'm going to say on this is I love technology. That's what I focus on. But not everybody is technologically capable. I'll tell you that I can't design my way out of a paper bag. So I can show you how Adobe Illustrator works. But if you ask me to design a product in it, I'd be hard pressed to do that. I'd have to reach out to Frances and have her design it for me. And she might have to have me put it back into Adobe to make it a digital image. But if you don't have the core competency in your business, if you can do sketches, or if you have a designer who knows how to do the sketches and the artwork for you, but is not comfortable using digital tools, you can outsource. You can find students that are in college, as Peter was saying, interns that are using these tools, and you may be able to hire them for a very reasonable rate to help you digitize your line and put it onto a professional layout like this. So don't feel intimidated that you are going from 0 to 100 in trying to create this digital merchandising view. There are resources out there that can help you. And I think that's my last slide, but if you'll go to the next one, Peter, I think, yeah, okay.
We have a question,
So,
please. Mr. Higazi, he's raising his hands. Muhammad Al-Sayed Higazi. So I'm allowing you to talk. Mr. Higazi. Yeah. Please unmute yourself.
Hello there, can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
I just have one question. I'm working in women garments like Galabeya.
Okay.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, please go ahead
Yes.
with your question.
I'm working in like Galabeya garments for the women.
Okay.
Modest dresses, right?
I can't hear you well.
سؤال حضرتك, your question please.
حضرتك ممكن تقول السؤال بالعربي او بالانجليزي واحنا ممكن يعني لو حضرتك تحب واحنا ممكن نوصل السؤال برضو.
طيب تمام. احنا المصنع بتاعنا شغال في الجلابيه، يعني الجلابيه النسائي.
تمام.
فانا شايف ان يعني هم مش عارضين الديزاينات بتاعتهم، معارضين بس بناطيل وكده.
طيب خليني please allow me to answer to this question in Arabic and then I'll translate what we were just saying. طيب خلينا نقول انه اللي هم عارضينه ده mainly أمثلة وليس هو ده بس اللي ينفع يتعمل عليه. هو بيعرضوا أمثلة لكن هو طبعا في منتجات كتير قوي ممكن يعني يتطبق عليها اللي هم بيتكلموا فيه. فبالتالي نوع المنتج بتاع حضرتك ممكن يتطبق عليه ده طبعا، بس بناء على الاودينس او المكان اللي حضرتك بتعمل فيه الماركتينج او اللي انت بتارجت انك تشتغل فيه، سواء كمنتج او كسوق. بس لكن هو الحاجات اللي هي معروضه هي دي examples او يعني الصور دي صور لامثله.
تمام ماشي، شكرا لحضرتك.
العفو. The question was mainly that he is working in a specific kind of product. It's traditional galabeya, or it's the modest long dresses that are traditionally used in for Arab countries. And he was asking if what you were mentioning as examples apply to this kind of product or not. And I was telling, because you were just mentioning pants and trousers, so I was just saying that these are examples, you're showing examples, but not all the products that they are, and everything can apply to any of the products, whether it's trousers, t-shirts, or any other product. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct, Yasmin, and I think for next webinar, you can just be me. I'll let you speak for me next time. Yes, so the example I was giving was just more of an example of taking from a flat image of a product and then sort of working through what that image might look like in terms of colors and other types of products that relate to it. And then finally, what that would look like as an end product for your buyers to look at, especially in a digital trade show type of thing. But yes, I think that can apply to anything. So if your core competency is modest women's dresses, I think you have an opportunity there, since you already know how to make dresses, you know how to do that you can have, you know, if that's where an area where you choose to branch out from, dresses are definitely always in fashion. So whether it is you are creating additional modest lines, or you're creating a more fashionable modest line with maybe different treatments and colors and things like that, or if you are looking to branch out to, I would say, less modest customers who maybe, will take a shorter sleeve length, or might take a lower neckline, or might take a higher hemline, then, that gives you an opportunity to build on the competency that you're already known for, as opposed to now maybe introducing men's trousers, let's say. So, all right, in terms of our next slide, I think.
Can I chime in, Jill?
I'm finished, Medita, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just to answer his question also, you have to think, okay, let's say you were present in Magic and you were showing this long dress on a mannequin or on a body form. So now when you do digital, when you have to attend this trade show digitally, how are you going to present it? There is technology out there where you can actually present a 3D image where the buyer actually can turn it around 360 and see the dress. So there's technology out there that you have to kind of use it. Like what Jill said, if you don't have capabilities in-house, I'm sure there's capabilities outside who can do that. And actually there are a lot of developments in this front that they're talking about. How to present a garment online, not just the 2D flat dress. How do you do it 360 degree? So there is an opportunity for those who can do these things. They will be ahead of the curve in the future. So I think that's what our job is, to show that there is capabilities. And I think the companies have to jump in one step at a time. That's the whole idea about these webinars.
Okay, if there's no more questions, Medita, maybe you want to take over the slideshow and share your screen. We're on slide number 23.
Sorry, Peter, there is actually another question, but I think Phil was going to answer it live, right?
I was just going to type in the chat, but okay. So in terms of what types of technology there are, so okay. First, you have to understand flats and patterns in order to create product design, especially online. A lot of people are just going straight to digital design, which is fine, but understanding how to do it from a flat is important, understanding how those pattern pieces fit together. That from the two-dimensional, meaning it's just, a flat image like this, to a three-dimensional, that's really where you have to actually be able to take those pattern pieces and build them all together as though you were building it onto a body form. And then that's how you can take those images and apply fabrics to them, apply colors to them, create that 3D turn, create drape. If you're looking at dresses, how does the fabric move as you're moving around the image? There are a lot of systems out there. One of the more popular ones is Adobe Illustrator, which is a 2D system. Corel Draw is a 2D system. And then there are systems out there like Tukatech 3D, which is a 3D system. There are things like Browseware and Clo, which are pretty popular these days in terms of that 3D technology. But I will tell you that learning how to design in 3D in a software program is very complicated. And so if you were thinking about how do we start with 3D, I would tell you to probably start in a two-dimensional world first before you're able to move into 3D. 3D systems can also actually integrate into your pattern making software as well. And that's actually great. If you have digital patterns in your pattern making software, you can import it into your 3D design system, build your product like that, and it actually works very well. But you can understand that there's a sort of a technology infrastructure here that takes time, takes energy, takes people to be able to work in these systems and build these tools correctly. Does that answer your question? I hope that does. So we can answer that at the end, but I think we need to move on to our next slide now.
Right. Just a second. Anyone, can you see? All right. Okay. So, so we're going to discuss a little bit about the, I think, with the participants, and I'm trying to works. It's like an online survey. So I'm going to share the link right now on chat. I don't know, Yasmin, how it works. Can you make it available for the
we can add a question in the poll.
The chat is open for people to write
yeah.
it.
So I'm going to
There's also a poll if you want us to create a poll. Oh, you already have a link to the poll. Okay.
Yeah, I have a link to the poll. I want to see whether this will work.
Okay, so we need to send the link to all. Which
because
one?
This will also help our
first or the second, because we need to send to all attendees.
Future webinars.
The first link you sent or the second?
There are two chat for the group.
Two links. You want me to send both? Okay.
Yes, either one. They can use either one.
Okay,
The
so
same,
both,
it will be the same poll. Yeah.
okay, so both are now sent to all attendees.
Okay. So I would like the attendees to respond to these. There are two questions. You just need to click on the link, and then there are two questions. They are multiple choice questions. If you can answer that, and I'm going to stop sharing this one now, the poll screen. Let's see how.
Yes.
Okay, so let's, it might take a minute or two. So I'm again requesting the participants of your companies, if you can go to these two questions and answer your manual or a quality manual, and there are 4 answers to each question. If you respond, I will see the response in real time. So let's give a minute or two. If it works, it's fine. If it doesn't work, I'll just move on with the presentation, because this will also help me. There you go. So I see it depends on how many people respond. Right now, 2 people have responded, so it's 50-50. Also, please respond the second question about the quality manual. So 3 people have responded. So four companies have responded, I believe. Okay, I'll stop right here because of the time. So I see that, so let's talk about this one. So I see that the sourcing manual, some companies are using a very comprehensive detailed sourcing manual. Some are using a basic one. Most of them are using a basic one. And I also see only few companies are not using a sourcing manual, but I also see quite a number of companies are interested to learn what the sourcing manual is. Same thing for the quality manual. Actually, a lot of companies are using a very comprehensive quality manual, but some companies are similar number of companies are using, by looking at this chart, a basic one, and some are interested. So I will stop sharing that and go back to the slides. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the quality manual and the sourcing manual. So let's start with the quality manual. So as we saw, a lot of you have experience with the comprehensive quality manual, but some are also using basic manual. Now the quality manual actually starts with the buyer's quality manual, but almost all the good buyers or big buyers, they have a very comprehensive quality manual because they have been sourcing from companies and they expect a particular quality level from the product that you're producing. But if you don't have a quality manual as a manufacturer, because the buyer will give you a quality manual, what they use, but then you also have to have a quality manual explaining what quality level you can achieve. Now, you know, some buyers expect a very high quality level, but some buyers do not expect a high quality level. Again, it depends on the price points as well. And that goes with the cost of the quality. Okay, so you don't need to make the product the highest quality level for a customer who is not paying you the price that is expected by a very high quality customer. So you have, however, you have to come up with a general quality explanation of your company. So this document tells the buyers. Now, if you go to find new buyers, you need to explain what kind of quality level that you can achieve, what are your quality procedures, what are the quality standards that you maintain. And this particular document, you can have it either as a physical document or the electronic version. But if you're going now with the digital trade shows, I think you should definitely build the digital version of this one. So what is the information that goes in the quality manual? You can show the quality management hierarchy. What is the structure of your quality management process? You have directors, managers, supervisors, line supervisors, quality controllers. Now, QA is quality assurance and QC is quality control. You also have to make sure that you show the buyer what type of quality assurance that you can provide, what type of equipment you have, what type of quality assurance systems are in place, whether you have statistical process control quality systems, what type of equipment you have, what type of people who are doing the quality assurance, what type of people who are doing quality control. So you have to kind of give an idea to the buyer about the quality. So you need to explain to the buyer the quality that your company, your manufacturing facility can achieve. You also have to let them know what type of capacity you have, what type of equipment you have to check quality. Now, say for example, do you have the fabric inspection machines? Do you have the, let's say you're making children's wear, do you have the metal inspection equipment to check metal pieces? So the equipment, you also have to show them what type of a workforce you have. So if you give you the quality management hierarchy, that will tell the buyer what type of investment you have made in order to achieve the quality in your company. In this document, you have to discuss about the compliance, what compliance requirements you are meeting. You also can show the past performance. and the reputation of your company. What type of buyers are buying from you, and what type of quality that you are achieving? What is the defects rate? What is your AQL, acceptable quality level, that you maintain in auditing the quality? What type of quality inspection systems you have in the cutting room, in the sewing room, in the finishing, in the raw material incoming. So you need to kind of give an idea about the quality that your company can provide. And this is very important because the price and the quality goes hand in hand. If you can show a better quality, you can probably win a better price as well. So let's go to the second one that we were talking about. And
I maybe just want to jump in. Sorry, Mudita.
Sure, sure.
Because this is so important. If you think of having the quality manual in detail and having that available, part of that goes into your website communication, basic about your quality, what your machines are, what you have invested. So it is all really closely connected to overall your communication. So having a really good quality manual will help you on two sides. It will help you on your communication outward, even to people who are just interested, looking at your website. Part of that will be needs to be communicated. And then you also have it ready, available for the buyers more in detail. So sorry, I just wanted to add that on.
Sure, thanks, Anne. And I just want to make sure I highlight these abbreviations. The QA is quality assurance, QC is quality control. The measurement procedures are like statistical process control systems, where you use statistics to show your quality achievements, your measurements. And then AQL is the acceptable quality level. Most of you must be, very familiar with these terms, but if you don't, then you might need to start thinking about what is statistical process control, statistical quality control. What is this AQL? What is the buyer expectations on the AQL levels? That is, how many garments do you need to check in terms of if the quantity is 5,000 versus the quantity is 50,000, and so on and so forth. So I think these are important things that if a company has not thought about it yet, if you're small but you want to be bigger, again, going back to Peter's slide about if you are a CMT, if you want to do full package versus you want to develop your own brand, these are the steps that you have to take one step at a time. You cannot do overnight. These are things that in progression that you have to develop to become a good, reputed manufacturer or a brand owner eventually. This is your brand, the manufacturing company that you own. This is the brand that you're showing this information to tell that you are a good company. So that is the brand that you're building, your name.
Adutha, may I ask a question? Is there some kind of a template that they can get to help them build this manual or software?
Yeah, I mean, there's no standard template in the industry that I have seen, but I have seen companies developing. This was not like recently, but long time ago. Small booklets. They are they bind these small booklets, but it shows the products, the quality that they can achieve, what type of quality system they have in place, what is the quality management hierarchy. In the first page is like, this is the department, this is how it works. We have a quality director, we have a quality manager, then we have quality line managers for quality, then you have line supervisors for quality. And then of course it divides by quality assurance versus quality control. What are the machines we have? So these are things, I mean, I don't think you need a template, but if you think of what am I doing to show the buyer my quality of my company. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, but they are not communicating as right and said rightly. They are not communicating this. And the buyer is in United States and the manufacturing is done in Egypt. If they have never come to your facility, then you have to somehow show what you achieve. And actually it goes to the next slide. This is the sourcing manual. And I always call this is everything you can think that can steal the deal. This is what the document that you have to create. And this is not a document that the buyer has, like a sourcing manual. Sometimes when I was working in industry, I saw one sourcing manual. So they are putting everything they need from the manufacturer, right? But as a manufacturer, you can put this document. This may be a part of the quality manual. So sourcing manual can be a part of the, though the quality manual can be a part of the sourcing manual. Sourcing manual is the big picture, because a buyer who wants to source from you, they need to know who you are, right? What you do, how you do, and what you can do, and what you can achieve. So this is all about who you are, what you do, how you do, what you can do, and what you achieve. And it has a lot of information. Sometimes one of the things that I saw online was a company had 35-page sourcing manual. That's fine. It's electronic. You are not going to print it. There's no print cost involved in that, especially when you are going to digital trade shows. This can be something very handy. And some of you have said already that you have a comprehensive sourcing manual, and I really appreciate it. And if you don't have, and if you like to learn, definitely you can use this slide. And again, this may not be the full list of items that should go into that, but the items that I have used and I have seen. And so I'm not going to go into detail one by one, but it's your company overview. It's policies of how you conduct your business, right? What is the social responsibility aspect of it that you are working in, right? What are your labor? You know, what is your ideas about human rights, the facilities, the layouts, what products, right? What is the procedures in different areas? What is the capacity, again, equipment, workforce? What is the skill inventory, right? So buyer would like to know whether you have skill workforce, right? So you can put down that on this document. What is the past performance in terms of lead times, quantities, delivery, quality? What is the past performance with which buyer, right? So the reputation, which buyer you're working with, who are the vendors you are working with, right? What is the, like, for example, going down into detail, like what is the fabric quality management system you use, the 4-point system, 6-point system, 5-point system? What is the system that you use, right? You have to also discuss what is the financial stability, because buyers will not like to work with companies who does not have a good financial stability, right? So even saying that, okay, we have 3 plants in 3 areas and each plant has 2,000 people working, right? That gives the buyer some sort of credibility that you are financially stable, right? So how do you show that? What is the logistics? What is the operation procedures, right? How do you communicate with the buyers? Do you have a PLM system or an EDI? So on and so forth. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but this is, you might think, okay, what is this related to the brand? What is my brand? But this is your brand, right? This is your capability. You are going to show your capability, and that is your brand. And if you have a good 2 documents, the buyer sees you as a well-organized, structured company who does business in the way it is supposed to be doing. I see some questions. Let's see. There's a question. Can you share a buyer quality manual? I will try to find an electronic version. I have a couple of the quality manuals in my office, which are physical manuals that I used when I was working with Chinese companies. But if I find one, I will definitely share that with Yasmin, and then Yasmin can share with you.
Sure. As soon as I receive it from you, Medita, I can share with all attendees of today's meeting.
Yeah, so pricing strategies next. You want me to share, or Dr. Kilduff, you want to share that?
Sure, I can share my screen. So here we go. And so pricing strategy. So we discussed the importance in the last webinar of planning in working with US companies, and particularly planning ahead of negotiations. And of course, a critical thing that is an aspect of negotiations is price. But in surveys of US buyers, of course, they say price is not the most important thing. Usually they say it's dependability. And dependability is the ability to deliver accurately, on time, as your promise, with 100% quality. But after dependability comes price, and there's actually much more to it than meets the eye, of course. And retailers work on price points. So they think of their product as meeting a consumer's a psychological price point in the market. So this is how retailers and brands think. And you have to be attuned to that, and you have to think about how do you pitch your pricing? Is it based on value? Is it based on value added? And you have to think about all the things they may ask you for in terms of value added services, in terms of flexibility, switching from one style to the next, in terms of batch sizes. Speed of delivery, and volumes, of course, and all of the things that you get asked can have implications on your cost structure. So you need to think about cost structures and pricing strategy for the various things that retailers or brands may ask you, and have schedules of discounts with regard to volumes and things like that. So thinking out your pricing strategy is very important. And then moving on to promotion. So everything you've planned and defined essentially helps with for this particular step, because you're going to tell a story and about your brand and your business and its products. So this is very important for promoting yourself, and your digital presence is key to this. And it's not just actually having the good digital presence, but it's also the communication that supports that presence. Because to have a nice website or a nice setup at an online trade show, it all falls to pieces if there's no good communication that supports that presence. So this is very important, and your promotional strategy has to follow your marketing plan, your 12-month marketing plan, and its timings, what you're going to be achieving as you work through your annual marketing plan. And of course, anything in your promotional strategy has to be consistent with the brand identity, your company brand that you're developing. So I think Anne gave some examples earlier, and here's a photo that shows a good example here. Telling a story, being able to tell a story about your company, about its products, about the people who make the product, and about its consumers. And in fact, if you see TV advertising these days, certainly in the United States, a lot of it is about telling a story. It's telling a story about the people who either make it or the people who use the product. And it helps build an emotional connection. It shows you who you are and what you care about. And communication is a 360-degree activity. So it's public relations and in-trade marketing, using sales promotions, and having content on databases that are available, and collaboration with and partnerships with people in the supply chain. A lot of promotion these days involves collaborations with others. digital marketing, and it results in a 360-degree integrated marketing communication strategy. In fact, in our school, we changed the name of our fashion promotion course to Integrated Marketing Communications, because that's the reality of promotion these days. Is it has to be multi-channel, and you can be communicating with businesses, you can be communicating with consumers, and you can be communicating with employees. But traditional promotion is still important, via trade shows and using marketing tools such as line sheets, price lists, etc. Having a catalog or a brochure, using your domestic export councils and organizations, and in some countries there's import organizations too that you can work with, using databases and platforms where you can be found, having public relations material available, developing press releases that you give to the trade media or the general media, and building collaborations with others to extend your profile. And then digital marketing embraces, of course, your website, and which has to be strong. And then there are things like search engine optimization and paid advertising on the web. And so that if people are looking for Egyptian women's wear suppliers, they can find you. They can find you on the web. Some people just do simple Google searches, and but you've got to be findable. And through Google and others, you can do paid advertising on the web. And in my experience, it's reasonably cheap. Having newsletters that you send out to a list, or you publicize again through your website, being on LinkedIn. A lot of American professionals you will find on LinkedIn, and it's a good place to be there and have a profile. And then other important social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Instagram is actually, I think, the most important of these three now, and Pinterest is also a good place to share visuals. So digital marketing is critically important today.
And that's, Peter, can I just jump in very quickly? And
Yes.
That's where a lot of the digital design tools can be integrated into your digital marketing. So the images, the layouts, things like that can be brought directly from your design tools into places like Instagram and to your website and so on.
Okay, next element, channel strategy, place in the marketing mix. Who's talking
Modita,
about
you're
place?
muted. Modita's muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can continue with the slides, Dr. Kilap. I'll just talk about it. So next slide, please.
So this is the first slide for place.
Yes, so next slide. So let's go to the, yeah. So, yeah.
This one.
Yep, no, the previous one. That's right. Yeah. So, so place, one of the four P's, right? And I'm sure if you have been studying the 4 P's, I can remember when I was studying the 4 P's, when it comes to the place, we were talking about location, location, location. Everything is location when we had the brick and mortar stores, right? Now it's the channel, channel, channel. Everything is now the channel because there's no more brick and mortar only, right? So there's multi-channel that we have to use multi-channel ways to reach the customer, whether it is the consumer or whether it is the customer, whether it is B2B or B2C, right? So I call it, this is the road to reach your customer, and I actually call it the GPS to reach the customer. So as a company, you need to find the direction, how to reach your goals, to reach the customer. Not just the, if you're direct to consumer, then the consumer. If you are direct to business to business, then your buyer. Because this will define your market share, right? And I call it actually buyer share in terms of if you are a manufacturer, right? How much share you can actually get from your buyers, or from all the buyers, how much business you can get. And it is very important. You need to think of these strategies, whether it's B2B, B2C, where you should have your showroom if you are planning to have a showroom for wholesale business. Okay, and then if you want to have a sales office, sales reps, or if you want to have agents, somebody you can hire from someone else, you really need to think of how can I do the business in United States? Do I need to actually have a sales office? We discussed this in the previous webinar about some legal aspect of it, right? And then it may be multi-channel. It is not just one channel. It can be multi-channel. You have sales reps here. You also have, good website. You're going to trade shows. You have a digital trade show presence in this pandemic situation, or physical presence in the future when the pandemic is over. In case if we go back to physical, who knows? So again, this is the place, the channel strategy, very, very important. So let's go to the next slide.
Sure. Can I, before we move on, can I just clarify, D2C, is that designer to consumer?
Direct to consumer, sorry.
Direct to consumer.
Oh, direct to consumer.
Right.
So
some
what's an
companies
example of
use
direct
that.
to consumer?
So some like in the industry right now in the US starts using D2C as a terminology. That's why we have included it. For example, right. Veronica Beard is one where it's basically still the same as B2C. So it's very similar when consumers go direct to the consumer only.
Right.
Next slide, please. So again, we are emphasizing here, if you are B2C or direct to consumer, or if you are B2B, then what are the strategies that you can implement? How do you reach your buyer? Through trade shows or through networking, or do you have a wholesale platform in your website? Would you like to have a showroom, or would you like to have a contract with the showroom, which is already in United States, where they can provide as agents? Would you like to have a buying office here? Do you like to have sales reps to reach the buyers? So that is one aspect of it. If you are direct to consumer, D2C or B2C, as Anne explained, how do you reach? What are the channels to reach the consumer? Do you have, in that case, your supply chain will be different, right? Because then you will have to have your own warehousing, you have to have your own fulfillment, you have to have your own customer service. And so you have to think of what type of supply chain if you're planning to reach that goal, right? Again, going back to CMT versus half package, full package, have your own brand, then you need to think of what is how do I reach my channel, right? How do I reach the consumer or the customer based on B2C or D2C or B2C? Next slide, please. So we are going to talk more on this one when we go to market strategies in the next in the webinar under the go to market strategies, and we will definitely go into more detail on this aspect of it. I think we are switching to sustainability. Maybe Francis can talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so sustainability, this is really is a big demand by most consumers these days, and also the retailers and the manufacturers are trying to incorporate it. So what is it about your story about sustainability? Are you sourcing raw materials sustainably, as we talked about with Jill's examples, designing sustainably without having to make too many samples? By doing them virtually will save time. Production, manufacturing, of course. What kind of is it efficiently run? What kind of well, the equipment, of course, but even going down to types of threads you're using. What kind of sustainability are you incorporating into your business? The waste management. Where is all the cuttings going from your cuts? As I was very excited to speak to a couple of the companies I'm working with, and they have a program where they give the pieces to their workers, and one companies they're making rugs from them, and the other one are actually producing these draft sausages for underneath the door. So how is it you're incorporating some sustainability into your business would be very important. And of course, distribution is another big deal. Logistics, how much waste is being used in distributing products from around the world is obviously another big issue that is a bone of contention for a lot of people. So having a good story about sustainability, or creating or beginning to create a good one, is also very important. We're seeing this big demand, as we talked about, also for recycling and upcycling. The interesting story with some big brands are buying back their brands, and they're getting a nice surprise. They're finding that the buybacks often are then selling for a higher price than the original ones. So what is it you can think about to incorporate that has some kind of sustainable story? Because this is something that you will get asked by your buyers, your customers, and it's also part of your story. And as we've been pointing out, it's also part of your brand. And so now, Anne, you go on with your next one, because Anne created this next slide, and it really gives you a good understanding of everything that goes into thinking about sustainability. So Anne, take this away.
Okay. Francis already gave a really good overview in the details of your supply chain. But when we look at sustainability as a big picture, what is included? Mostly, I think when we throw sustainability as a term, everybody thinks environmental. But it really also covers the social side. And we talked about that in your storytelling. What is your work ethics? What about labor rights? Like, especially if you look at US buyers who are maybe not familiar with other countries as much, they want to know how everything works, what you do, how your employees, even a lot of you I know show great photos of your factories, your facilities, but also what are your code of conducts. So the social part is really essential, also under sustainability. Governance are also the business ethics, regulatorities, but I would also say if you even look at the sourcing manuals, quality manuals, like your overall compliance as a company, how you do business is extremely important under sustainability. And your technology side. Everybody cares nowadays about data privacy, for example. So there goes a lot of into the sustainability, and we are aware of that this looks like a very big topic. So and environmental is probably the first and most important, and of course the social part. But we just wanted to also give you the big picture here and think of the overall sustainability and how does that affect your business. And probably most of these pillars you have implemented already. So, but how can you communicate? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, can I pick up a point you just made? I was reading a story about 2 weeks ago about a British company called Boohoo.com, and they're an online fashion brand. And it turns out that they didn't pay their workers in their UK factories. And I think this was part of the COVID-19 issue. But it has really hurt that company badly because they didn't treat their workers correctly. And I think they were outsourcing in the UK. But because they didn't treat their workers properly, it's really, really damaged their credibility with UK consumers. And it's really hurt their business. And now they're scrambling to try and recover from it.
Yes.
So
That's
all of
a
these
really
things very
good
important.
context. Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. And Francis, do you wanna jump in, or should I?
You can do
continue?
it. I mean, it's
Okay.
basically, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I think Francis covered all of that already in the introduction. So what we just want to make you aware of and emphasize here is that the sustainability movement in the US and globally is really big. So thinking about ways in your supply chain, and you see this graphic, I actually really like, it shows the circular fashion ecosystem. You see the reuse, recycle, you see the design side, and you see the supply chain material side. Of course, your impact is more on the, let's say, material side, but it can be on the design side. And thinking about ways to communicate, integrate it, and it might not be today or tomorrow, but think about it for next year, maybe in 12 months or in 6 months. What can that be for your company to establish your unique selling proposition and your differentiators? I'm coming back to also the storytelling about, if you look, if you remember just the previous slide, tell your story, who you are and what you care about. And the sustainability aspect is extremely important. And the buyers really will recognize that and like really appreciate if you integrate that into your values and your company. And so far, working with also some of you already, I've seen you have a lot of these steps and pillars already in your strategies, but they're just not communicated. And maybe in the next slide, we also have one more example. Oh, actually, it comes later, so I'm gonna let Francis talk about this slide.
I just want to jump in on what you were saying on the previous slide is it could even incorporate things like your hang tags. You know, you don't have to be using plastic hang tags. The hang tags can also be made from a recycling paper. Your packaging, well, you know, it doesn't have to be plastic. You could be using paper or tissues, or some people are including sewing a little bag to put them in. So everything you're thinking about when you're thinking about the overall global impact of all this waste going out there is just, it's frightening. So everybody is very concerned about everything you do. So there's points here on sourcing sustainably, making sure that when you begin your process to source, that the materials you buy are biodegradable and they're sustainable. Product development, we talked about that. Your production methods are also, we're seeing more and more for on-demand production, and there's one of the companies here that's got a great big factory here that's cutting one particular garment at a time, and it's made to measure. People are scanning the bodies, they can see a three-dimensional, as we were talking about earlier on, and then it's made to their measurements. It's cut single layer, it's moved down by conveyor belt to the workers sew one. So this is actually called On Point, and they're now being invested in to build other factories elsewhere. I think Germany is one, England, and other parts of America. So this is the new norm. It's going to be the new norm. So thinking about also, I know everybody wants to get thousands of orders of one garment, but it may be that you're going to have to rethink that method of business. So labeling and packaging we talked about, and of course logistics, how are things being moved around, what kind of waste is involved in that. We're just talking about one of the sourcing panels about going online with the trade show. Can you imagine how many gallons of gas is being saved because of the flights of these people coming into Vegas, and now they wouldn't be doing? So these types of things that are really, particularly with the millennials and the Gen Z, are questions that they're all asking. So, and again, upcycling and recycling. I don't know about you, but where I live, we've got a Goodwill or a secondhand store, and it's busier than the department stores. I can't believe how busy they are. So these are the things that are important, sustainable issues that please do try to incorporate into your company. And obviously you can't do it all at once, but grow slow and start to see how you can make it work.
And maybe the last slide, so that's also, we are nearly at the end. These just show two examples, and on the left side you can see 4Ocean, for example, is one of the organizations. It's a non-profit. They collect ocean plastic and recycle it. So a lot of companies collaborate with, like, on the sourcing side with them. And on the other side, you see the logo of Escafé, which is it's a Taiwanese fabric company who produces fabrics out of recycled ground coffee. So they collaborate with Starbucks mostly, and it's used also for sportswear, but can be used for all kind of products. So basically our message here is, like, it's little things you start integrating. Sustainability is a big terminology, it's a big area, includes a lot, but it also gets a lot of attention. So if you can start thinking about what makes sense for us, and that depends, of course, on your business model, on your setup. So those are just some ideas we wanted to mention. Really also think of organic cotton. Sometimes your buyer might not go for it. We are aware of that. Sustainability in many ways might also mean more expensive, but offering it, having alternatives available, will show your buyers and your customers that you understand the marketplace and that you are in sync with all these developments. That's really important. And sometimes also it's about setting up the right contacts in case somebody asks for it, that you, for example, are in contact with companies who offer organic cotton or recycled materials in any way. But that ends our sustainability part here. And we just, at the end, we want you to remember that every step is important. We've talked about a big, like, it's the marketing strategy is a very big topic. It's not gonna be ready within weeks. It takes time to really refine, but each step is super important to contribute to your success. So big change starts small is our end here. So we hope this is has been helpful. And I'm not sure if anybody else wants to add something from my colleagues.
Just taking that point, of course, the famous saying here is Mao Zedong, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Although he probably didn't say miles, he probably said kilometers. So thank you, everybody. And I wonder if you have any more questions that you would like to pitch to us, or comments.
Well, I can see that there is only one comment coming from Muhammad, that he is thanking Mudita for sharing the book, but he also needs to have an example for the buyer manual. So we'll look into that, and we'll try to share something in the near future. So in case there are any other questions or comments, can you please raise your hand or just type them? If you raise your hand, will allow you to speak, or you can just type them on the Q&A section.
And sure, I think also, I think the last slide Anne showed, no one can achieve the goals overnight, and it should be like a small, simple steps. You just need to have a plan and kind of invest a little bit of time of a day for this purpose. And I can remember, and which you can do, don't think, this is my advice, don't think that finding buyers is a task. It's a task. However, there are buyers also actively looking at companies to source. So it's a two-way stream that it has to come to the point where you meet and you supply. So yeah, I mean, it's again a demand and a supply kind of a situation. However, there are a lot of actually companies who have started small brands but now want to become bigger, are looking for good sources. So how do you meet those buyers? So one step at a time.
One thing I'd like to add though as well is working with sourcing at Magic. I know that some of the companies we're working with have specific customers they have in mind, and they were hoping to get a list of the buyers. The thing that was pointed out to me was they didn't like to give the buyers lists out because they felt that the buyers were getting inundated with emails that sometimes were unnecessary. So their suggestion was that if you have a particular customer in mind, is to prepare a nice little marketing, not too long, just a marketing introduction to your company. And if you send it to sourcing, they will send it on to that client. But again, prepare your marketing material so that you can tell, you know, that they're not going to be wasting their time when they open it up, that they have a full story that's not too complicated, with a link to your website, that we know we're trying to work with you to get them a little bit more visually inviting. So again, there are opportunities there, but you need to get your marketing materials together as to what your offerings are.
I think there's a question. I think Nadine is asking, someone mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, sharing LinkedIn profiles of buyers. I think, was it?
Yes, we did.
Did you share some profiles, Francis?
Yes. Anne and myself, we shared with our clients a list of potential buyers that was based on their own profile, and it was through LinkedIn connections. And you also did the same as well.
Did we mention matchmaking? There's a question about matchmaking.
We didn't address matchmaking. I think, as we talked about last time, that this being the first time they've done the trade show online, they're learning a lot, you know, and everybody is. So this virtual trade show for a first time I think it's been quite successful, but it's also a learning experience, and I think they're improving it a lot. They've employed a buyer's relationship person, an ex-grad from Cal Poly. It's Trish. So she's going to be working as their buyer's relationship director. So it will be in March, starting on the 2nd of March for 2 months. So again, please don't just rely on them sending you buyers. You have to prepare your own showroom on sourcing, right? And a lot of the ones we saw were sadly lacking. So if people go there and they see it's just a mishmash, it doesn't tell a story, there's no branded images there or a story about the company, you've lost them straight away. So again, prepare your marketing. And they said, prepare it before you go. Don't leave it to the day that you think you can put your goods up there. Make that preparation of how you want that trade show booth to look online. Remember, it's merchandising. Jill talked about that. And it really, these days, it's more about merchandising than it is about trends. Suggesting pieces, how they're being put together. You design a top, you can put it together with leggings, you can put it together with baggy workout pants, you can put it with shorts. Merchandise your goods so that you can tell a story, and that's a hook for those potential buyers.
I also would like to jump in here on the question of matchmaking. So what Magic did this year is there were leads provided and there is a matching on the platform. So it's definitely always important. We heard a lot of feedback saying, oh, those are not the right buyer contacts for us. It's like on every trade show, you never know who's the right buyer contact until you have reached out and started a communication. So I think especially the digital platform really requires to spend the time on generating leads. Magic is giving the help, but then it's about all of you like really deep diving and following up, because even if a brand name doesn't sound familiar or you're not immediately recognizing if this is a good match, it could be a good match. So there is definitely a lot of resources we saw and a lot of like connections provided and leads, but they might not see on the first sight like the perfect ones. But that's like, imagine you're standing at Magic. That's exactly the same. You never know until you've started your conversation and put time in, invest the time.
Exactly. Get your pitch as well, your 30-second elevator pitch, right? Prepare it. I think you've all done that with students. You know, tell me what it is you want to do in 30 seconds. And if it goes beyond that, you know, you're off. Could even be 15 seconds.
I see Mohammed has a question about technology. Was that an old question, or did you just post that?
No, I think Jill already answered to that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right, Jill?
Okay.
So yeah, I got the response back that I had answered that.
Okay. It just came up in my Q&A, so this is the joy of technology. It just arrived on my computer an hour late.
I know you live out in the wilds, but not that
Right.
far out to space.
Right.
Okay.
Well, if there's no other questions or comments, I'd like to share my screen again to make one plug for our next webinar. So let me just go share my screen. So this is our next webinar. It's on December the 20th, 2 weeks today, and the topic of that webinar is building a strong workforce and management for export success. So if you can join us in 2 weeks' time, this will be our topic in 2 weeks. So, well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Rania.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rania.
you.
Thank you.
Medita, Francis, and Jill, thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the attendees with us today. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you next week.
Bye.